Okay, and welcome back. We always start the sessions on a count of three. We want everybody to say yes. 1, 2, 3. That is our rallying cry. It just allows me to go back to the time when we were on stage in the south of France and at the Can Diversity Collective's Inkwell Beach first session that was created for inclusion and diversity, the first inclusion and diversity activation at the Cannes Lions Festival, International Festival of Creativity. So we are glad that you guys decided to join us for our 10 o'clock session, which is bound to be, I'm thinking, a really good one. We have Bennett, who is here with us. Nathan is working feverishly to join us so that he can join the conversation with us. And, just a note, Nathan, that's why we asked you to call in early so that you can get that set up. This is coming from Auntie Adrian, okay? Get it together. Just kidding, darling. But your boy Bennett is here with us to join the conversation. And we're going to talk about the 600 because this is something, that has sparked some interest, spurred some movement in the advertising industry. So we're going to delve into that a little bit. We're going to start by introducing Bennett D. Bennett. Bennett, welcome to the space. Welcome to the virtual live session, day one, what we're calling Level Set Monday. So we're going to allow you to set things off and tell us why you created. So just give me a little background or give the audience a little background of who you are and how you got into this industry.
Sure. Well, thank you, Adrian and Can Diversity Collective team for having me. This is the closest I've ever been to the south of France or across the Atlantic, so it's kind of an honor to be here. I am a content strategist. I run my own consultancy called Aerialist, but as a lot of you may have known over the past few weeks, I helped co-organize an open letter to the ad industry that has led to the launch of a nonprofit that advocates for the advancement of Black talent in our industry. It is called 600 and Rising, and my role with them is Vice President of Partnerships. Started my career, kind of non-traditionally. I was a physics major at one point in my life and made a couple of hops between colleges and majors and fell into the ad industry. Spent some time at BBDO New York, spent a bit of time covering the industry at the Drum, covering mass media, the agency sector, creativity and innovation. Took some time to freelance and now kind of doing a bit of double duty, trying to make a better future for people in marketing, content, and creativity.
So Bennett, you mentioned something that, it's always important for me to get these stories out, that you were a physics major and you fell into the advertising industry. And I think, if you talk to a lot of advertising executives in this business, and a lot of times people of color or Black people in the advertising industry, they talk about how they fell into the industry. And being a physics major obviously was an interesting fall to get into advertising. I'm sure your parents may have forgiven you by now, but
it took a while.
What made you, before we get into, what made you fall in love with the advertising world?
So yeah, I think my parents, they're immigrants from Jamaica. They really cared about me having some sort of stable career more than anything else. So I was just raised in a lot of STEM extracurriculars, from some fellowship program in elementary school that was sponsored by NASA to attending one of the specialized high schools in New York, Brooklyn Tech, where I took up biochemistry. They have like 15 majors for these high school kids. So biochemistry was what I chose. And eventually, I knew I always loved writing. But, there was always that concern that I would end up being a starving artist. So instead of taking up creative writing, or at least English literature, like a lot of people who want to pursue a career in writing would go to, I said, you know what, like, my dad fixed TVs and stereos growing up. I always loved acoustics. I always loved optics. And, maybe I can do some research in that field. And, when I took it up in college, I realized that calculus was a thing you have to take. And that was the very limit of my math comprehension. So eventually took some time away, went to a community college, took up broadcast technology and management, which was a little bit closer to what I wanted to do. Something behind the scenes, something that allowed me to do some writing, maybe some production stuff. And then, a friend from that same high school I went to, she was studying at FIT at the time, said, hey, I've seen a lot of the stories that you write, a lot of the blogs and songs and poetry, and you'd probably be good for advertising. I was like, what the hell is advertising? So, eventually went to a networking event called Where Are All the Black People? I'm glad it's made its triumphant return this year. And I was hooked. It was just seeing so many beautiful brown and black people from all over the country, and said, you know what, like I want to hedge all my bets on this. So, a few crazy quick years later, and here I am virtually standing next to this guy.
Well, great. We're glad that Nathan is finally here. You're about to get it, young man. Just let me tell you. And now you're on mute. Unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. We need to hear your voice. Say something, anything. Okay, he's going to come back and join us. But
got it. Is this working?
Yes, there you are.
All right, so you don't need me anymore, Adrian. I'll take my leave.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
All yachties are the same, Nathan Bennett. Like my parents are the same. It's like you have to have a stable career. That's all you need.
You gotta be a lawyer.
All right, I'm out.
Viola, thanks for coming. So Nathan, welcome. We just went through a conversation with Bennett. He just gave us our background. And then we're going to get into the meat why everybody's here. We want to talk about the 600 and this open letter that you guys created. So really quickly, tell me who you are. How'd you get into the advertising industry? And, you're raising hell right now. So let's hear about it. How'd we get here?
Yeah, Nathan Young, president at 600 and Rising. I'm also group strategy director at Periscope. And I've been in the advertising business for about 10 years. I started my career in Seattle. It's only recently that I moved over to Minneapolis. And, it just seemed like, I don't know, I was put on this path for a reason. I live about 4 blocks away from where George Floyd was murdered. So certainly his death at the hands of that officer hit very close to home for me. And this all really started when I was trying to process the events that were happening around me. I was looking at live streaming video of Minneapolis on fire in chaos. I was looking at live streaming video of New York, where there was continued police brutality. And I'll be honest with you, it was really, really hard for me to process everything that I was seeing. I was watching all of this on live stream while the smell of smoke was wafting in through my window. And in order to process that, I started doing some projects. And Bennett will attest, the very first project that I did off of that was a little bit ugly. It was a powerful piece of work, but it was definitely more on the negative side.
Was it a written piece? Was it what type of piece?
It was a video. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to capture the feeling of what it felt like to be a Black man in America watching all of this stuff unfold. And it was a very tense video. It was, cutting together all these scenes that I had seen just over a weekend. And, Bennett basically, I think the word he used was triggered. It was just way too intense. And it was why don't you put your energy towards something more positive? And, we went back and forth, and where we arrived at was the open letter. So thank you to my friend Bennett for putting me on the right path, because without him, we would not be here today.
Wow.
But once I found that path, we went very, very aggressively at the problem, at the situation, and we really haven't stopped since.
So it's great to have that background and understanding the process, because I think we all, as you said, Bennett gave you that keyword, have our trigger moments, right? That we have to decide how to harness the anger. And I think, for you, and I cannot speak for you as Black men, so there is a moment of, threat. And, for Black women as well, I can speak to myself, there is this fear factor that we have. We're always living in a space, in a world where our head is on swivel, whether it's in a corporate space or whether it's just walking, down the street, there's always some amount of guard that you have to put up. So, for you to say there's this moment of intense anger that you were creating and you vented out that, but found a constructive way to harness it, I think is very powerful. And I think, is a great sort of message or segue into kind of that end result of what happened. How do we harness that? And I think we, as Black people, have learned how to feel and adapt, right? We feel and adapt. So what happens now is going to be the critical thing. So you created the 600, that list, or tell us more about that. How did it start? Again, we understand it came out of, the anger that was processed a little more better, but what's in it? Like, what's the gut? And then I'm going to, talk back to you about kind of next steps. And Ollie thinks somebody's ringing my doorbell. That is what happens during a conference. So I'm going to let you talk about that while I get that person away from my door.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We were just reminiscing about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, I mean, it feels like every month is like 3 months in a weird way.
Time compression.
It's ridiculous. But you had reached out to me on Twitter. That's, I mean, technically how you and I met, and you were like, "Hey, I think I want to do an open letter," and this was like your idea right after the video. And I'm like, 100%, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get some industry leaders to sign it with us. And, I think, it was just a bit of drafting away, getting some action points together, and, getting some people to take a look at it. We had other people, chime in with feedback at every step of the journey, came up with about, I'd say a really good amount of steps, and whittled it down to 12, because, you don't want to overwhelm your white and non-Black peers when making something like this. You want to be clear and get the point across, and be as inclusive as possible, but at least hold everybody to task.
Yeah, I would say, it was just such an organic process. I think, as soon as I said, let's do the open letter, Ben and I both went throughout our networks and gathered folks up to help us start drafting the letter. And they went out and grabbed a few folks, and they went out and grabbed a few folks. And, before knew it, we had 100 people working on a draft here.
Wow.
I think the most surprising thing to me about this process, so, once we had 100 people, it wasn't going to be feasible to just open up a Google Doc and like start writing, and everybody is doing different things. So we put together a survey, and in the survey, it was standard Likert scale 1 through 5. How much do you agree with this statement? We put a bunch of statements out there. And I think the most interesting thing to me was how much agreement there was on every single one of the statements. Normally in a survey, there's, usually some polarization. There's some people who strongly disagree, some people who strongly agree. For us, the only variance was between whether people agreed or strongly agreed. And so that told us that we were on the right track, that we had figured out kind of what the universal Black experience is, not a monolith, but, I think within advertising, it kind of is. We all have the same stories. We can all talk about a time a coworker said something insensitive, or we tried to push out work that we absolutely disagreed with, or we were passed over for a promotion and we shouldn't have been. So these are universal experiences. We managed to capture them in a letter. We also managed to articulate diversity and inclusion policy in a way that was radically straightforward. There was no kind of buzzwords in there. It just kind of is what it was, or is what it is. It was just, 12 steps that honestly, we couldn't figure out why they hadn't been taken yet. It's been almost 15 years since the 2006 New York Human Rights Commission. And in that commission, all these holding agencies pledged to do better. Why didn't they take any one of these 12 steps? I'm not sure.
So, before you came on, and I think it was probably in our pre-talk, Bennett and I were having a conversation about, now and why now, because as you alluded to, this has been a history. I would, love to say, Nathan and Bennett, you're the first ones that came out with this list of, demands. But truth be told, within the advertising industry, there's been a long history of, similar things happening, or trigger moments, if you will, that have shifted a movement. And it's almost like it's been happening in like 10-year cycles almost. So if we even step back before 2006, in 1998, the Madison Avenue Initiative was started with Sharpton and a group of advertising and media-owned companies that were responding to a Katz memo. And Katz was a radio rep firm that had instructed their salespeople to encourage their media buyers to make sure that they are attracting prospects and not suspects. That was an internal memo that was circulating within an organization. That was leaked, and of course, all hell broke loose. And we were able to get, through this, more Black-owned, minority-owned media companies. We were essentially able to get more or a larger share of the media spend and buy. So that was in 1998. We moved, was it 2006, 2008, when you mentioned the EEOC filings, because of the research that was done that showed that women, Blacks, people of color, not represented well in C-suite positions and upper level management, not being paid the same. So then there's, the filing that, of course, sort of allowed us to level up, if you will, to get more of these positions, give women more opportunities. But then 10 years after, we're still in a similar space. So we've gone through these phases of fighting for diversity, fighting for inclusion, fighting for equity. Now I think we're in the phase of accountability, right? So what do you think is happening different now? What was that trigger moment, or what is the environment that makes it different now that you think that this is something that will be sustainable with this 600 and rising organization that you guys have started?
I made a joke earlier that we are in the real world phase of 2020, where people stop being polite and start getting real. I think that there's been a lot of doublespeak on the issue of diversity, and a lot of people letting people get away with platitudes in the replacing action plans. And what we know is that there is no substitute for action. What we know is that the moment that we are in is extremely urgent. And what we really know is that, kind of powered by that same anger that I felt this weekend, we are going to be relentless in terms of our pursuit of justice this time around. I'm not going to wait another 14 years to see whether or not ad agencies miss this opportunity again. I'm going to hold them to account from day one, and we're going to put them. I think we already announced we're on a 90-day plan. We're trying to get everything together as an organization in terms of policy proposals within 90 days, working with the 4As, working with these agencies to get at least a plan of action in place. That has been the entire thing that has been missing from this conversation. We've done a very good job of standing up internship programs and congratulating ourselves and patting ourselves on the back and diversity awards each year, but there's nothing to celebrate. Right. Candidly, it's been 2006. What did we find out? 2% of leadership in advertising agencies are Black. What did we find out as a result of the data that we just pushed for? 2% or less of advertising agency leaders are Black. So we've made zero progress in 14 years, and that is unacceptable.
Yeah. You were you about to say something, Bennett? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'll echo that point and add from a conversation I got to have with Keith Cartwright of the Saturday Morning Group. One thing that feels different, and there's been a lot of this feels different talk from individuals, us, of course, and our peers of color and white people as well. That it feels different. And Keith Cartwright kind of hammered home something really interesting about what makes 600 different. It's like we got over 600 people to agree on something. For those who watch Insecure, it is hard for people to agree on Team Issa, Team Molly, Team Lawrence, whoever it is. But to one, there's now no excuse for anybody who is still trying to figure out where talent is. And two, hopefully, you can tell from Nathan's fervor and just, I guess, my weird history through agency side, journalist side, like understanding the full picture as it is and making sure that our members are along for the journey at every step and making sure we have these key partnerships with, the major industry stakeholders like the 4As that, we are addressing every part of what I call an infrastructure problem. It is, yes, a systemic problem, but, it's not just in the hiring. It is in the portfolio schools. It's at the award shows. Why should we only be able to congratulate ourselves when it does come to diversity? Like, we came into this industry for reasons bigger than just the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, our gender, and so on. And it's just been, I just say all the time, I'm like, it should be unfair. Like, it is unfair for us to think that we have to continue leveling up. And, it's not lost on me that today is a level set day. Like, our job at 600 is to level set the playing field for everybody.
Great. I'm glad you like that title, level set. But to your, both of your points, you talked about some of the things that have happened and congratulating ourselves. And, one of the things I think that's interesting is, the amount of money that's been thrown into groups and organizations and pledged, and, people are getting excited about the money. But, I always say we cannot be lulled with the symbolic gestures that are being given right now, right? Because we have had all these symbolic gestures given, but yet we're still in the same position. We've signed the documents, the petitions, we've marched, we've created opportunities for larger media companies, investments made, but still we are here. So those symbolic gestures, although they were great, something happened and we were not moving. Even if you think about some of the things in the women's movement as it relates to advertising and marketing, and some of those numbers have moved up, but we're still fighting for equity. We're still fighting for pay raises and all of that, because the symbolic gestures went no further than that. So and
isn't it interesting when white women ask for change, we can change as an industry overnight. But when Black folks have been calling out for change for decades, somehow we can't find the Black folks. I think that, much respect to Kat Gordon, first of all. She's put together a really fantastic movement. And, candidly, we learned from her. We learned that there can be no change without accountability. We learned from the fact that you need to be really, really focused on the numbers because the data doesn't lie. You can say all the nice things that you want about how many efforts you've put in place, how much budget you put aside, how many interns you brought in. But if your numbers don't move, then what's it all for? That has been, as an industry, we're very, very focused on ROI. Our margins are very, very thin. It's really strange to me that, for all these diversity and inclusion programs, nobody's ever thought to measure the effectiveness of it. I don't know, maybe they were afraid of the results that they were going to see. Maybe they knew that they were bad and they just didn't want to see it. But like, there's no other part of this business where we're not measuring the effectiveness of it. So, I mean, I think that is maybe the most radical kind of part of our proposal is like, hey, maybe let's not just be fumbling around in the dark. Let's, test a bunch of different tactics and see how they work year over year. Let's be really transparent with what every agency is doing. And, it's not just to name and shame people who are doing bad. I mean, that's like probably the least kind of important aspect of transparency around data and transparency around practices. Really, it's so that agencies can try different things, report back on what worked and what didn't, and we can all learn from each other and move forward much faster than if we're all just trying to do it on our own. So I think that's the future. That's what the future of this movement really looks like. As I said, first 90 days, we're really going to be focusing on crafting policy and trying to get it adopted. First year in, we're going to see the kind of results of that, those beta tests, as I guess what I would call them. And then after that, it's just going to be a long road of trial and error and getting better year over year. As much as there is a huge sense of urgency in us getting something started, we recognize that this is not the ideal economy for agencies to be, putting money aside for diversity and inclusion programs. But there's never really a good time for this stuff. I can't remember, certainly in my career, a time where the advertising agency world was just flush with cash. This is something that we need to do, I think, to ensure that this industry survives. I don't know if this industry will survive going forward if we don't make smart investments in diversity and inclusion. I don't know if we can really make the claim that we are the purveyors and gatekeepers and creators of culture when there are entire cultures that we have systematically excluded from the process.
You mentioned an important thing. You hit on the word culture, and you hit on sustainability and accountability. So we want to dig more into those things of building a culture where inclusion and diversity is not just siloed so that budget gets cut. If you think about when COVID hit, D&I money, ERG money was slowly disappearing, like it was zapped out. But as soon as the, George Floyd situation, money was kind of found and re-energized to put back in those D&I budgets.
Crazy how that works.
It's amazing. So I'm going to have tasks with you to say, no, the money's there. You just have to be serious, and organizations have to be serious about when to allocate and how to allocate. And that means not putting inclusion and diversity programs in silos, but making sure that inclusion and diversity is a part of the natural fabric of an organization. So you have inclusion and diversity, culture thinking methods in the recruiting, in the retention, in HR, in strategy, in finance. It's embedded throughout your entire organization so that it's not at the threat of being cut at any moment. So, if nothing else, we can give that back, that I&D is not a set aside. It's, it's everything. It's the blood that runs through an organization. You talked a little bit about the partnership that you have established with the 4As. Why did you choose the 4As? And then how did that relationship come to being, and where are we now with that? And is it beneficial? I mean, why the 4As?
I can take that one, Bennett. The
4As, we're just asking.
Yeah, no, the 4As has so many more resources already existing that we can tap into. Also, I want to call out that this is not the first time that the 4As has, attempted to gather diversity data. They've attempted to gather that time and time again, and they were rebuffed by the legal teams of various holding companies. I think you can guess by who hasn't released data so far who those holding companies are. I'm not going to name and shame anybody, but shame on you. What I will say is that they are very enthusiastic about doing the right thing here. We've had a number of conversations with them where they have recognized that in the past, they have done too much to cover for agencies on this issue and not enough to help them get to the right place on this issue. And they are very, very passionate partners of ours. We don't want to spend our time focused on standing up the infrastructure required to gather this data from every agency in the country. We want to spend our time and our energy on developing the policy and partnering with the 4As and individual agencies and holding companies to implement those policies over time. You know, the way that 600 and Rising functions, and we're going to have more to announce on that this week with the announcement of our board and the announcement of kind of the next phase of 600 and Rising. We are functioning something like a think tank meets like a grassroots movement. So we've got the think tank angle of it, where we are really working with the leading, African American and non-Black people of color folks on the D&I side to develop policy that is going to be effective for the advertising industry. But we also have, our now 1,500 Black members and 1,400 non-Black allies who are ready to be activated in order to apply pressure or in order to advocate on behalf of us inside their agency. So we have, not only a super talented board of, 16 of the leading people, not only do they all have, 5 committee members each who are working on various issues. I can't do the math that fast on the fly, but it's a lot of folks. But we've got thousands of people who are very, very passionate about this issue, who want to do something, who we are going to be able to enroll in this revolution. And I think what we've already started to see is that the more victories that we have, the more big stands that we take, the more motivated that they are to make a difference. We are walking the walk, kind of as we are building the ship. And I think that gives a lot of people a lot of confidence that 600 and Rising is going to be the organization that gets the job done.
Bennett, you have any comments you want to say on that? You're muted. We can't hear you, Bennett.
Things got slow and then turned all Twilight Zone-ish on my end. Okay. No, I heard a lot of Nathan's points, and I came up through a lot of the diversity initiatives. I'm a product of them. I am proud to represent them, and one of them happens to be MAPE, and I'm grateful that I found some sort of family through the MAPE alumni network, and the larger D&I teams that the leading to the foundation team that the 4As has now. And I think the power of them, of the 4As being a lobbying body, the power that they have in terms of their programming for their members. And there's also kind of a lack of awareness issue in regards to like when talent enters the industry. I'm sure they know about the AMA, the AAF, the 4As, all these different organizations that provide, programming seminars for talent, but also, in terms of what they're trying to build up now, I think they had recently announced their Vanguard program that's supposed to help mid to senior level people. I know my good friend Erica Riggs is on the chat speaking a lot of truth right now, and I know she and I have absolutely bonded over this concept of the messy middle. There's the bamboo ceiling and the glass ceiling, but for a lot of Black and non-Black POC talent, our issue is like getting to the top. Getting to this like set point where we know there's nobody in director and executive levels that look like us and can advocate for us, and we find ourselves with in no-win situations that end up pushing us into adjacent industries, like the tech sector, like the media sector, like brand side. And, that's never the goal looking in, and now we're faced with this pandemic. We're faced with a lot of, civil unrest. And, for talent entering the industry, they're going to walk right into a buzzsaw unless there is, some sort of, and I don't want to say rapid response. Like my family went through Superstorm Sandy in New York. So I spent about 4.5 years waiting for the city of New York to get its act right and get me, my family, and a lot of people in our neighborhoods back home, in one piece. So I'm very aware that progress never comes quick enough for those who need it the most. But like, we have to try. We have to try. And, we're lucky that, maybe it's not luck, maybe it's fate, right? That that organizations like the 4As have reached out, that, there's been this outpouring of support and willingness to be activated to make change. Our best role here now is to make sure that, we activate them as much as possible, because, for years people have been like, diversity is everybody's business, but like, only the Black and brown people have like literally taken that burden of the business, and zero a bit of the profit or reparations for the emotional labor we have to take up. So, I don't know if I spoke to a lot of things that Nathan said while it was kind of like cutting out, but that's how I feel about it. It's yeah.
No, I want to add to that, and that I just want to say it is not the 4A's responsibility to solve systemic racism. It's not 600 and Rising's responsibility to solve systemic racism, and yet here we are. It is every individual agency's responsibility to take care of their own house, put their own house in order. It is every holding company's responsibility. I am glad that we are seeing movement here, but let's not, Bennett, you characterize it as progress can't come fast enough. We haven't seen any progress, I don't think. We've hired some chief diversity officers, we spun up some diversity teams, but have they been empowered to take the types of radical action required to fix this system? No. Have they been given sufficient budget in order to fix these systems? No. Have they been, in the right meetings with the right people? Have the CEO, the COO, the CCO, have all of them been enrolled in that mission? No. We've kicked it over to a few select folks like yourself, and then it's just like, go ahead and fix this. Take this little bit of money. And we're not going to really give you the support that you need. And then we're surprised by the lack of progress that we see. My hope is at the very least that situation has been corrected as a result of our actions. I think you can tell me better than I can tell you. But we have seen a lot of fast movement, particularly on WPP's side. And I want to give a special shout out to them, because they were the first movers in this situation. They have committed a lot of resources. And I know personally a number of folks who are kind of leading the charge there. And we've seen a lot of encouraging signs. I wish that every agency holding company moved at the speed of WPP, because I think we might be even farther along than we already are. But, it is what it is. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're committed to this movement for the long haul. I think a lot of people thought, after the letter, that was going to be it. And then they were surprised to see that, we were still working. I think a lot of people thought, there's going to be that 4A's partnership and that was going to be it. And then they were surprised to see that we're actually taking direct action. And, just last week, I led a walk off of my agency due to unfair and immoral practices. And I think that there's going to be a lot more of that to come if agencies don't move with the right urgency. I think that a lot more workers are going to say enough is enough and take action. So I think it's incumbent upon all these agencies across the country, across the world, to really take heed to what their employees of color are saying. It's not anything new. We've been saying it for decades. And so when they say like, oh, yeah, give us a couple times, we've given you decades. Yes. So pushing it off a couple of months is not going to work this time around.
Right. So let me just get a point of clarity. You said I'm just trying to clear, who were you saying you to? You were saying we pushed it over to you. Were you just talking about the industry in general, or maybe I misheard? I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, I said that you need to get your house in order, and that's referring to agencies in general. Okay. Not WPP. I just shouted you guys out. You guys are doing.
Yeah. Did you see me go? I know you didn't. No, but even with the support and from WPP, and I think I drank the Kool-Aid, becoming a part of that organization because of the new leadership with Mark Reed and Jackie Canny and Judy Jackson. I think the trifecta of that team is definitely a team that, I use the term forward focused because they're doing the work now. It's not cute and it's not sexy all the time. Do we have all of the numbers right? But we want to make sure that the numbers we are providing are accurate, especially in this evolving time. So, we are doing the part and doing the work internally. It may be quiet, but just know work is being done, from a WPP standpoint. And also the key for us is to make sure that it's not one of those symbolic gestures. It's not a symbolic number of $30 million that we've given into this space, but we're working to make sure that there's sustainable change, that we are not back in this space. And then when we're out of it, 3 years later, they're asking what happened, what are the results? So any opportunities that any of us, and we challenge any other groups, organizations to do the thing, is to do the same thing in terms of making sure the change that you're creating, the money that you're giving, the symbolic gestures that you're making are not that, and that they're symbolic changes, that they're real changes, not symbolic changes. Nathan, I like the fact that you talked about it's time for action, and enough talk. That's one of, the mottos of the Can Diversity Collective is don't talk about it, be about it. Mm-hmm. And I think you guys with the 600 and rising, are taking action, but we want it to be sustainable. So I do want to talk about some of those action steps. Tell us about them. I love to hear that. I love that you guys did a lot of research. You did some surveys. It wasn't just, your rant of coming up with, action steps with nothing behind it, but it was a collective voice. But let's go through a couple of the points, the highlights. And you said there's a 90, 60, 90-day plan. What day are we on? And what do we need to do to make sure everybody's being accountable?
Lord, I wish I could tell you what day we are on.
We can't just be throwing random numbers out. I know it's symbolic, but let's be actionable about it, right? Let's be in the moment to not only hold everyone else accountable, but we have to hold ourselves accountable to keep pushing. You did an amazing thing. You said, I'll drop my coins and walk out of an agency. You took a stand, right? I wish there were other brave people who were not looking at the 15th and the 31st. I do now. So I'm just saying, you just have to make sure that, we are all being accountable with the spaces we're in and the jobs that we hold. You're willing to walk away. So for the cause. So what else can we do? And then again, help us align with those action points of what needs to happen.
Sure. So there's a couple of questions there. I think to the action plan, where we're continuing to be focused on is on the release of the data, because if you can't see the data, there is no way that you can see the, what improvements you need to be making. There's no way to track how effective your programs are. So we're going to be continuing to focus on the release of the data until all the data has been released from the holding companies. Again, there is one holdout. Not sure why they're still holding out. Not sure why they've made no announcement. Not sure how they've let Havas of all holding companies beat them to the punch here. But it is what it is. Pretty soon, their time is going to be up, and we're going to be making more direct calls on them. So if anybody at that agency is listening, get your shit together. Beyond that, we are going to be focusing on, retaining the talent that we have. There's been too much focus on, well, where do we recruit these Black folks? You need to make sure that you keep the Black folks that you have there happy. And it starts with talking to them. Novel concept. One of the things that we've gotten in response from our membership is a lot of kind of anecdotal evidence that, this is honestly the first moment that they've had a conversation with the leadership at their agency. First time for a lot of these folks that they've ever talked with the leadership of their agency. There's that much disconnect between the leadership and their employees. Of course, they're going to miss the mark with certain policies. If they're making policies without talking to the people, there's no way that it's going to be the right policy that's going to serve their needs. So I think that is a big kind of learning that agencies can take away immediately is like, hey, I know it's uncomfortable to talk about race. I know it's uncomfortable to talk about discrimination. I know it's uncomfortable to talk about all these types of things, sexism included. But it's required in order to get a handle on these issues and try and figure out what is the best way forward. If you enroll the people who are in your organization in their own success, enroll the people who are in your organization in making the changes that are necessary, they are going to help you. It's not just up to the C-suite to make these changes, it's the employees as well. Beyond that, what day are we on? I know that we are just a little bit over 30 days from when that letter was issued. I think we are just a little bit short of 30 days from when that 4A's partnership was announced, and that is when that 90-day clock started. Again, I believe tomorrow we'll be announcing our board, which is a huge step forward. I believe next week we'll be kind of through our nonprofit shenanigans. I've started businesses before. I've never started a nonprofit. Turns out there's quite a lot of red tape there that slows you down a little bit. So we'll be opening up donations. And then we've had a number of partnerships that we're ready to announce pretty soon too. Just like WPP has, 600 and Rising has been working very, very quietly in the background. Do not mistake, our relative quietness for a lack of action. We've been making a lot of progress in the background, and we're really excited to announce that later this week.
Yeah. I'll add to that just a little bit. When we thought about those initial 12 steps, you think about even that first one, releasing the data, we don't just want that to be, one flash in the pan, the way that the, EEOC data was released all those years ago, and then just like never picked up, every year since. Because right. You show it one time, it's like here it is, it's bad, we'll work on it, and then billions of dollars are invested in diversity and inclusion, and we say that there's been no progress, but as the country becomes a minority majority, right? Like there's more people of color than there are white people. Like it's just not reflected C-suite, junior level, wherever you look at it. So making sure that that's an annual thing is super key. And I know we had notes about making sure that agencies have things like ERGs. I've gotten to watch a few panel discussions from some of the trades and other organizations, and you have executives championing the grassroots, but like there's no point in championing like grassroots just to have a bunch of people get all rah about an issue and then follow through with some sort of investment to empower them. Right. That's how the Blackbirds at Twitter have become one of the most powerful forces in tech. To the point that you see some of the boldest creators on that platform getting billboards in major cities where protests happened. Like that does not happen without like the collective ERGs, like having ideas, having buy-in from people on product and policy and all the other facets of that company, which is a much smaller company than Facebook, right? Like it's insane to think about. Strong Black lead with Netflix. That's kind of an ERG in and of itself. But look how external facing it's become with the amount of beautiful content, whether that's film oriented or TV oriented, that, gets to reflect our multitudes as people. And now, you've got Bozoma St. John, like major power player on the brand side, now getting us to literally watch her work over at our organization. It's like, it could be that simple. It could be that simple as, making sure that you're, that you're foot soldiers, right? Like it's natural when organizations get larger and larger and larger that it's harder once you're an executive level to see what is going on at the bottom. But at least making sure that you check in on these people, asking how can I best, not even how can I help? How can I best activate your fullest potential as employees? turning that into policy. We're in advertising, turning that into breakthrough creative work. The bar was so low, according to Cannes executives, that we couldn't even get, some proper award show this year. And that's a shame, because we are put in so much pressure because of the pandemic, because of all this civil unrest, that, the industry was written off as not capable of creating breakthrough work. But, I just think personally that, I think it's BS. And I think that, again, our 12 steps were never meant to be like, this is like every checklist you need to be a standout organization. It is supposed to be a start.
Yep.
Yeah. Supposed to be a start in that direction. And then you see what happens when you're able to activate vigorously on those plans.
Right.
So hopefully, when 365 days rolls around, you have some sort of best practices together. You have some wins, but also understand your failures in all this, because, again, not naming and shaming anybody, but it is a hard-won lesson in vulnerability. And that's what the ad industry needs right now.
I think, a big part of it, and you guys step in anytime, one of the big things that has to happen, and I'm a big advocate for culture shift and culture change, like each organization needs to set what I call, and, I got this from my friend Jeffrey Bowman at Reframe, of creating a culture index, and making sure that people are adhering to what your culture index, and that is, how are you hiring? How are you retaining? How are you making sure that all of your employees of color, or not employees, period, are constantly being upskilled on the right way to function in an organization, almost like staying human one-on-one, and making sure that the fabric and fiber of your organization stays strong. So in the event that people are not adhering to the culture that you have created, a culture that will allow you to thrive and make sure that everyone is being able to achieve their best work, then, I'm all about purging the system, right? And that is going to be something that leadership has to buy into, in terms of making sure the right people are in and fitting the culture of this industry. You mentioned the importance of ERGs and buy-in from leadership. We were just in our previous session with Procter & Gamble. Crystal Horrell talked about how Mark Pritchard literally would come into the early meetings of like maybe 4 or 5 people to talk about the work that they were doing with the talk, so that he was able to take the hit when they were up against, people who were saying it wasn't going to work, it didn't fit, what they were trying to do. But having, leaders come to the ERGs and not just be champions of it, but you got to be active in it. You got to be sponsors in it. You have to work within those ERGs and, give them more money to make sure that they're doing the work that you're asking them to do, because ERGs have daily jobs, and then on top of their jobs, the expectation is that they deliver great product that fit the culture of the organization. Well, we're challenging leadership to get involved deeper with the ERGs and actually provide more support, either with your presence or with your dollars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it comes down to values. What do agencies truly value? If we spent as much time and energy debating, the most effective policies on diversity and inclusion as we did on the relative merits of the Moldy Whopper, we would not be here. We love to, we're at Cannes, so let's talk about it. We love to talk about the value of work. How creative was it? How innovative was it? How effective was it? And all that. Those are the same questions that we should be asking about our diversity and inclusion policies. And it's only because of a lack of value that we do not have that same discussion. When we have these diversity awards program going forward, I want there to be a shift in terms of what we are championing, not just individuals who have made almost like impossible gains in a system that's rigged against them. That's certainly worth celebrating. But let's start celebrating the agencies that are really making the right investments in diversity and inclusion. And let's celebrate, not just the fact that they were reached some threshold. Let's celebrate the innovative nature of their programs. Let's celebrate the ERGs and the HR departments and the diversity and inclusion departments who made that possible. Those are the people who should be hoisting up lions at Cannes, not the or not just the creative leaders who are able to get some innovative work done.
All right, so I'm going to go out on a limb here, just like we said, just do it. And we started the Can Diversity Collective, that we will make it a goal that as a part of the Palais stage, okay, everybody's hearing me out there, as a part of the Palais Award stage, that there should be an Inclusion and Diversity Award that is given to the agencies that have made the best progress. Is that what you want me to do, Nathan? Is that
Let's do it.
All right, so we will say on this day at 10:56 Eastern Standard Time at the virtual Can Diversity Collective's Inkwell Beach Live, we made a commitment that in 2021, we're going to be giving out a diversity, like we're just going to totally co-op to it. We're going to have an Inclusion and Diversity Award that's going to be given out. So I like it. We said it here. So we have 3 minutes left in this great session. Thank you guys for the conversation. Again, I love the work about the words about action, and that's what has to happen. We've had, honestly, lots of policy. The D&I leaders that came before us have worked their asses off and done some amazing work coming up with the numbers, proving that inclusion and diversity equals money, that it is best for your business to do it. But the problem is, where has the action been? Where has, they have the playbook, dusted it off. Now it has to be actionable. People have to believe in what our D&I leaders wrote and the policies that were created and take action on it. So we're committed to supporting what you guys are doing with through the Can Diversity Collective in Inkwell Beach, to support what you guys are doing. And you both have a minute each to give us some closing thoughts.
I mean, I couldn't close this off any better than the way that you just did, because you just showed how easy it is to take action when you believe in something.
Yeah,
it really is that easy. So, when people say that, we're being too aggressive, in some ways, I think we're not being aggressive enough. It is just that easy to do the right thing. It is just that easy to take action. A lot of these, 12 steps that we put forward, a lot of the, other ideas around improving diversity and inclusion within agencies don't take $30 million to implement. They just take one person with the right views, making the right decisions in the right moment. And that moment is now. So let's stop. I will come on every single one of these panels. I will give every single interview. I will write every single op-ed, but it doesn't take that. It just takes making the decision and taking the action. You
have to decide and you have to act. Okay, Bennett.
I will add to that, it is, I came into this industry thinking it was bigger than me. Like, I had to help my parents financially bounce back from the superstorm when I came in. I've let that sort of mindset of knowing that there's more people to help, there's more things to do, kind of just drive me throughout my career. And for industry leaders, it is bigger than just your agencies. You represent communities like Minneapolis, like New York. There's a constellation of different organizations to help, a lot of, schools and opportunities to activate, and to introduce Black talent and other talent of color into the industry. There's just so many ways to do it, and to think of things as just insular, for the sake of business ROI cannot be the way to go about it, especially as the issues that are happening right now, affect more than just us. So, it's going to take some selflessness. It is going to take, I like to say trust is the sacrifice of the ego. Egos have to get locked in a closet, with, throw away the key and you just go out there and try, and there will be some failure in the process, and that's fine. But like to go about shit the way that we have gone about shit for the longest now, it does nobody any favors, and it is only going to break down this industry further than it's been recently. So that's what I've got.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. This has been a really great panel discussion between us. I know you guys have a 600 and Rising 100 list. I have not received my invitation to be a part of that.
That's not us. We appeared on Kai Wright's Blacklist 100.
Oh, is that what that was? I thought it was you,
so,
and I was saying I need my...
Shout out to Kai Wright. I know he's part of the WPP team.
Oh, so I need to talk to my colleague. And
you do need to talk to your colleague.
But, but Nathan Young, Bennett, thank you guys for your bravery. Thank you for leaning in and taking action. I agree. We don't talk about it. We have to be about it. You have the power to make this happen. If we just 3 action steps that I got from Francis Fry, we have to honor the past. We think about the history and the road that we've taken. We have to make, a change mandate, which I think you guys are in that phase of making a change mandate so that we can move forward, and then just have an optimistic view of the possibilities of what can happen. And I do think we all believe that we can do this. We can make it happen with no money or all the money. When we started the Can Diversity in Inkwell Beach, it was just, a thought that was put out into the universe, and we are here still today. No major corporations backing the move. We just decided to do it. So you guys keep making those decisions to change the industry and change the world. And I think we are all better for it. So again, thank you guys for being a part of this. You guys, our next session starts at 12:30. We have another powerful session. I hope you're going to come back and enjoy that. It's going to be with Love Malone, Lincoln Stevens, Walter T. Gear the third. And it says, so you say you can't find Black people. They're going to help you find those people. In the meantime, in between this session, we have some footage from 2019, which was our first C-suite session, which features Gail King, Mark Freed, Monique Nelson, and Jackie Canny, all from the WPP family. So please watch that at your leisure, and we will see you back here at 12:30. Thank you, guys. You were amazing. Bye-bye.